to High School. It is the September edition of the Lipedema Patient Roundtable, and we are so glad that you decided to join us tonight. I couldn't wait for tonight. I don't know about you all, but it's been quite a month, and just this time together to encourage each other, make each other laugh a little. And I know that we have a lot of lipedema information to talk about. I know you are all logging on. Chat is enabled, so say hi to everyone. Hey, Carol Moody from St. Louis, we're so glad you're here. So many of you have gotten into the spirit of the evening, which is our high school selves revisited. And to that end, I have a little PowerPoint I wanted to share with all of you, because if you missed our promotions for this event, you need to see what we looked like back in the day. And we have a question that we want to ask of everyone as well. This is the Lipedema Patient Roundtable, sponsored by Lympha Press. We're here every third Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're so glad that you joined us tonight. By the way, that Lipedema channel logo was created by our very own Lippy Butterfly, Angelique Charles. So we appreciate you. Oh my gosh, and there I am. 1981. I never smiled back then because I was terrified all the time. I am Brenda Viola from Lympha Press, proud and honored to be your host and moderator tonight. I am wearing my Andy Gibb t-shirt because I just wanted to be his everything. And I was into New Wave back in the day. So I have my New Wave pin. At my 40th high school reunion, they made us wear pins with our high school photo on them. And I have my Pat Benatar 8-track tape. So I'm ready to go back to high school with all of you. Oh my goodness. But we also have Jenny Beaujean. She is standing in for Cheryl Skolage, who is on a much needed break. Cheryl, if you're out there, if you talk to Cheryl, tell her we love and miss her. Well, lipedema and food sensitivities. Jenny Beaujean, what were you feeling and thinking in this photograph?
I was probably thinking, all right, I got to smile. I got to keep my hair in place, even though it was short and kind of did its own thing.
Well, it looks good. And I love, you look very joyful with a light in your eyes. But now we go to Cara Cruz, pale. Well, this is how we all know her now, pale ginger pear. That's actually kind of a very cool photo with props and everything. What were you thinking at the time?
I hated this photo. This was the polite one for my grandmother's TV display of photos. I was class of 2000, so that was the 00s that I'm leaning on. And that was a sweater that my grandmother picked out. So that's my let's get this over with.
That's your let's get this over with smile. Oh, yeah. Now we will know. The picture
I wanted was my NSYNC one.
When I see you in that smile, I'm going to know, oop, time to move on, Brenda. You're getting boring. Hey, so your NSYNC shirt is not something that you just pulled out for tonight. This is something you wear regularly, right?
Yeah. And this is from 99, 98. This is an original from back when they were fresh and not in their 40s.
Well, I had to buy this because I didn't have an Andy Gibb t-shirt, but I did have him. I was only allowed to have one poster on my wall in high school, and it was Andy Gibb. Am I a dweeb or what? Okay. And then the always cool, she was cool back in school, Pattie Cornute at Lipedema Fitness. So Pattie, I like this rocking the hair with the frosted tips.
Yeah.
So all you have to say is yeah.
Yeah. At one point it went from being a long mohawk. I had the mohawk on the top and then the sides were really short and then I had it longer. And cool. Then we cut all the back off and it came out to be this.
I would have so wanted to be your friend in high school because you were so cool and I was so insecure and awkward. And notice the two earrings. One's a little heart and one's just a little stud, I guess. It's so cute.
I don't even remember.
Siouxie Boshoff. not your traditional high school photo, but she is not your traditional anything. Siouxsie, tell us about this photo.
I mean, actually, it was at work.
Gorgeous
I never
too,
finished
by the way.
school. I never finished school. The last school year I did was 7th grade, and I got in so much trouble. I think my mom was terrified of putting me back in school. If we're being honest, I was not a well-behaved teenager at all. And so I quit school, and then I went to beauty school. I was going to beauty school part-time. Yeah, got pregnant with my son at 16, had a baby at 17, was married at 18 when I should have been graduating.
You look like you were in one of those rom-coms from that era. You just look like you should have been on film doing something.
I mean, I had great hair. I definitely have the
yeah,
the curl it, flip your head upside down, blow dry it, and then let it do its thing. Oh yeah.
And you know what they say, well-behaved women rarely accomplish much. So
totally.
look at you, your case in point, you were not well-behaved. Lippy butterfly. And we also have you in the festivals of music at Orlando 1999. There she is, front and center, our beautiful Lippy butterfly. What were you thinking in this photo?
Well, I think I was thinking it'll be amazing if I graduate from high school, because like Siouxsie, I was not the one who was I wasn't doing my grades, and I was pretty well behaved, but I wanted to talk nonstop. So I was always in trouble. But I also was like going into my senior year when I took this picture, and I only had like maybe 3 classes. So I was really excited about like not having to go to school for the whole day. Like you could have given me like the worst class ever, but as long as I was going to be out of there at noon, I was fine with it.
Well, I love also, before any of us knew to put our hand on our hip when we posed, you were rocking that. Was it innate? You just knew how to work the camera?
Let me tell you, to be honest, I had hips and thighs. I had lipedema at this age. And I thought that my shape was cute. I was trying to show off the fact that my waist was smaller than my hips, like honest to God.
Well, you know what? I love that. I think that's awesome and good for you, and for good reason. You're beautiful there. And you were singing then also, just like you're singing now.
Yes, we actually sang at Disneyland right prior to taking that photo. Disney World, sorry, yeah.
Wow, wow. Okay, the beautiful Linda Ann Kahn. I mean, your eyes just pop in this black and white photo. Linda Ann, tell us about who you were, where you were, what was going on in this photo.
That's a long, long time ago in South Africa. And I was just graduating school and getting ready for college and listening to the Beatles and Elvis Presley and dreaming of Elvis Presley and Cliff Richard. And I met my husband not very soon after that. So, yeah.
Wow. Yes. And I had the privilege of meeting Linda Ann's husband, David, who is an absolute sweetheart as well. I love this photo, and you are ageless. So we'll have what you're having, Linda Ann. Absolutely. But not to be, wait, this was a late breaking photo. This just in, folks. Dr. Karen Herbst, you got to tell us what's going on with the phone there.
So I would go over to my best friend's house in high school and just walk over. She lived a block away, spend hours and hours and hours with her. And then when I got back home, I would immediately pick up the phone and call her. And my dad could not understand it. And he's like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, Sally Bender.
That's fun. And is this your high school graduation? Because you look so polished and put together.
That is, yes, as a matter of fact, that is. I think I got my hair done. And I don't know the hand. I don't know what's going on with the duck hand. I really don't.
Whatever. It works. Well, thank you for sharing your photos, everyone. Later in the program, we are going to ask you all, what would you tell your high school self? But we have questions coming in, and I want to start with you, Dr. Herbst, because you actually have a question for the panel and for the people attending. Your question was, do your lippy fat areas sweat more? Did I pose that correctly, Dr. Herbst?
Good.
Anybody want to talk about that? Lippy fat areas, and do they sweat more? Go ahead, pale ginger pear.
I actually really rarely sweat before surgery. It's gotten worse since surgery. I don't know if things are just working properly now. If that's the case, it's one of the downsides of surgery. That and the hair growth on the legs I could do without. But I mean, the thighs always sweat because they were just like together. Like there was, but the other areas, like I didn't notice like excessive sweating.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on the sweating issue? Go ahead. Siouxsie, were you about to say something, or are you just playing with your computer there? There you go.
I was just making sure I was muted, so that's awkward. But I find that I don't sweat properly with lipedema for whatever that's worth. But I do find that obviously the thigh, the chafing of the legs is like,
Yeah.
I mean, I would never go without compression in a skirt or shorts or anything unless I wanted to die. So,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Dr. Herbst, I gotta say, what provoked the question?
So I normally think of women with lipedema as having decreased sweating, but I had a woman today talk to me about how she felt her affected areas had increased sweating. And she's got some unusual ways that she treats herself. And I was thinking, well, maybe it was because she uses the infrared sauna or, something else, but I don't know. Linda Ann might be able to speak better to that maybe she's sweating a little bit more because she is using infrared sauna, and she's also using, suction assisted treatment, and just like and Epsom salt baths. And so there's a lot in the mix there.
I had a
Andy,
question.
Go ahead,
Is it
Angie.
possible that it's weeping and not sweating that she's experienced? Because at my harder times, my legs weeped, like when they were in those areas, they weeped, but it wasn't sweat. Since it comes out clear, like it's hard to kind of tell sometimes.
Yeah, she does not have lymphedema, and she has a history of being much larger, but she's pretty small. Like she weighs 160 pounds and she's got some hanging skin, but it's not that. So it's not lymphoria. It's just and I think of like when I sweat, you're kind of detoxing a little bit, right? So I wonder if there's something special about her tissue, and she's a highly sensitive person, and she notices everything on her body. And like she'll use techniques where you pull up the tissue, pull it up, and she reduces fibrosis that way. So she's doing a lot of stuff on her own. But I don't know. I just thought that doesn't sound like lipedema to me. I think I'm going to check.
Yeah, interesting. I remember when I interviewed, and I'll go to you, Linda, in just one second. I interviewed the wonderful Kelly Maynard, and she had not sweat in years, but when she started using her Lympha Press, she began to sweat again, and she felt that it was a sign that the lymph was moving and that things weren't clogged up anymore. Would that be an accurate description, Dr. Herbst?
That's what I was thinking, that she had mobilized things so well that those areas were actually sweating. I just have never heard of like focal sweating versus, like sweating under your armpits or behind your knees or in your elbows. But
Gotcha.
I think she did it. I think she accomplished that.
Wow. So Linda Ann, you wanted to say something.
Well, I have not had patients tell me that about sweating, but I have had patients tell me about different areas in their body that are cold or hot. And I had one patient who's actually a mutual patient of ours, Dr. Herbst, who wanted the surgery specifically so that her temperature would regulate. And she was thrilled. And that was okay for about 2 years. And then those areas of different hot and cold came back. So we don't know what that's about. And then in terms of sweating, in the days when I used to do, sauna or things, now I don't because of the lipedema, it would take me forever to sweat. And so I've actually found the opposite, that it takes patients longer to sweat. I think it's something to do with the sluggish lymphatics.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, we're getting a lot of chat with the P word, perimenopause. And a lot of people saying the waterworks come and it is brutal. And we're also getting a lot of comments about your high school photos, everyone. People are loving this tonight. And we love that you are into it, everybody out there. It's back to school night. And a very scholarly paper won an award since we were last together. And I have to applaud Dr. Herbst. Please tell us about your Lipedema Foundation, the paper, what the topic was, and what the recognition was that you got.
Oh, sure. So when I was working at the University of Arizona, sponsored by the Lipedema Foundation, I realized that there were no papers on liposuction for women with lipedema in the United States. And to conduct a large trial and follow that would have been very difficult, although I'm working on some data right now. So I said, well, let me just ask the ladies. And so I created this questionnaire. Maybe it wasn't the best in the world, but gave it out, got a lot of answers, learned a lot. And we received notice last month that the journal we published it in, PRS Global Open, has awarded us the best paper, in 2022, but of course it was published in 2021. So, but we still received the award this year. And so I'm not going to go receive it, but Tom Wright is going to go up there and receive our award for the best paper.
That is huge. And here you are dismissing it and saying, oh, it wasn't all that, and it won best paper.
Best paper, which means it was probably the most highly read paper in that journal. And wow. Linda Ann and I know that our standard of care paper was the most widely read paper in the Journal of Phlebology too. So we just didn't get any award for that, but they told us about it.
Well, the best reward is women walking into their doctors with the standard of care and saying, read this.
Yeah.
And getting the tools in their toolbox to help them so much. We appreciate you, Dr. Herbst. We appreciate your commitment and dedication. We're so proud that you are our Chief Medical Officer at Lympha Press. And together, we are going to see many lives impacted for good. We've only just begun. And so I'm just minding my own business, working at my computer, and I get a text from Pattie Cornute that one of our very own, Casey Grosvenor, was on an NIH panel. What? And she rocked it. So I immediately tuned in, and she was on with representatives from Learn, Bill Rapisi, Cam Ayala, a few other folks. But what a wonderful forum to raise awareness. And thank you for mentioning the roundtables, Casey. We're so proud of that too. So what were your feelings when you watched that, Pattie?
I just think Casey did such a great job representing us, and everything she said was just something that you could relate to. And it was really important to hear her point of view. And that's what they were looking for. So for her to say what she's going through and the challenges that we face, and the other people as well. And they were talking about, compression not being covered and going through breast cancer and getting lymphedema afterwards. And Casey being on there, it's just wonderful that we can continue to have representation when it's medical and patient. I just think that's such a great, great combination, and we can learn from each other and we can help spread awareness. And, I was commenting along and I immediately got an email back saying, thank you so much for all the feedback. I've sent it to everybody. So great job, Casey. Very, very proud.
Yep. Awesome job. The more our voices are heard, the more we're in unison. We may all have different ways of managing the condition and different things that are particularly interesting to us. But the main thing is that people are aware of this and that people can get help for it. And that's what we're all about, however you find your help. And so there's a lot of appreciation going out there. Siouxsie, you're chatting to Casey, but do you want to shout her out live on the show?
I mean, Casey, you've shared your whole journey, your insurance challenges, and your tenacity to not take no for an answer. And like, I feel like you've really, really created an amazing channel in which you're sharing your story, and it's so real for anybody who's going through it. I mean, I even share her profile with people that are like, oh, I don't know, and this, and I'm like, oh, you need to follow Casey. Here's her profile, blah, 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 because it's such a beautiful, it really, and of course you're such a beautiful spirit anyway, forget about all of that, and like Little Miss Sunshine, 100%.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sunshine with just the right amount of salt. We appreciate that. Absolutely. You know, there's so many wonderful names I'm seeing that have shown up tonight. Michelle Jacqua, Nita Cluis, who we appreciate, Susan T, Tori Johnson, Tracy Miller, Lisa Lugo, my friend. I have to say, Megan Frew's out there. She wants to know what's on my shirt. Did you tune in late, Megan? It's Andy Gibb, who I just wanted to be his everything. And this is me from my 40th high school reunion when I had black hair, long, dark black hair. And then of course my new wave button, because I was that. Now, Pale Ginger Pear, you posted something earlier today in preparation for the roundtable, and you talked to your high school self. What did you say?
I guess I'll just read it because it was probably, if I try to summarize, it won't go well. But so I posted a picture of me and like one of my best guy friends from back then, but I like cropped him out of it kind of. But I said, I wish that high school Karen knew we weren't crazy, that actually had a condition. I wish she knew that we'd have true friends that actually gave up and not just wants to use us for our connection or car. I wish she knew there was relief in her future from the daily pain. I wish years of no one believing her and being obsessed with her body didn't cause walls that screwed up relationships to this day. I wish someone had told her about lipedema 20 plus years ago.
That post hit so many people in the heart, and we appreciate you sharing it again. And we most of all appreciate that you faced your challenges and continue to be a light and a beacon of hope in the lipedema community. You know, we talk a lot about lipedema here. We talk about real life too. And sometimes you'll tune in and maybe it won't be the content you expected, but I hope that you will know that you're genuinely cared for when you come to this space. The people understand your pain, people like Pale Ginger Pear that are vulnerable enough to share that. Did anybody want to add anything to what PGP just shared? And then I have some medical questions that have come in that I would like to address, but we all felt that, not true? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I can say that, you know, when I was in high school, kind of like you, or many of you, I was pretty shy, and it was a kind of a difficult time in the sense that women still were kind of like, yeah, you're a woman, but you know, the men go ahead and the boys do this and the girls do that. And it's very, at least in my family, we were very, you know, separated. So to have lipedema on top of all of that and to be going through puberty at the same time when your entire body changes, it's a huge, huge thing. And so, Pale Ginger Pear, would you, if you could go back now, what would you do for yourself at that time to support you? Because I think that can shed light on what we could do for girls today.
I would be more vocal about the fact that I knew it wasn't my fault. Like, I knew how little I ate and I knew how active I was. I mean, I swam almost daily. I had a paper route job that I had 4 routes in total over 2 hills. Like, I walked daily. Like, I wasn't just sitting at home eating. Like, I knew how active I was, and I was a nanny. Like, I literally was nonstop. And but I let it get in my head. I let these outside voices, I let everybody else's doubt get to me. And like, so like, I mean, social media back then was nowhere near what it is now, but all you ever heard was that men were either into tits or ass. And I didn't get tits. Like, I didn't get them. And like, it wasn't until I was way older that I was like, oh no, they like hips too. They like thighs. Like, it wasn't taught that like there would be somebody that liked you for you. And like, so I was so like in my head that like I wasn't going to find somebody because I didn't fit a mold. And then there was also the double standard in my house that my brother played football, so he had to stay a certain weight to be able to play. And I was forced on every diet that my dad went on. I woke up at 3 a.m. to go walk the track before it got too hot. But Corey got to just sleep in because he had to stay a certain way for football. So I got a double standard at home, and I got crap at home from everybody but my mother. She was the only one in my family that never commented on my body. And then I went to school, and I was always the girl that guys, talked to for advice, but never the one that like got the guy. And it was just like this weird situation. And I went to a very small Christian school. There was 22 in my graduating class. And I had some of the worst body shaming by the group of teachers at that school. And like, I actually have like a chapter on this in the book that I'm writing about how, made in God's image unless you're fat is like.
Wow. That's a powerful statement. Go ahead, Jenny.
So it's interesting, your question, Dr. Herbst, because when I was thinking about what do I wish I had known back in my high school days, and what I was kind of thinking towards was I wish I had known to surround myself with people who support me without judgment, that accept me who I am, but that they would also have pushed me to empower me to speak up, and that they'd be there to support me to do those things that were scary, like keep pushing the doctors to kind of figure out what was going on with me, instead of just saying, okay, they don't know, maybe it's just my German legs, who knows? But that these people who would push me to go places that I was afraid to go would also be there to catch me when I fall. And I'm fortunate to have those people in my life, but I wish I had known back then that it would be okay and that they would be there for me. So it was kind of interesting that you were asking it that way, because, I felt pretty good in high school, but boy, if only I had known then what I know now, I might have figured things out 20, 30 years ago.
I wish I had stuck up for myself. Mm-hmm. I was bullied. You saw that photo of me and people were saying nice things, but when I walked down the hall in high school, there was a gang of girls that would bark as I walked down the hallway. And I remember thinking, is there something wrong with me? There must be, because why else would they bark? And I never thought about sticking up for myself or being my own best friend or my own advocate. And what I love about the lipedema community is, and it's a shame that you have to advocate for yourself so much, but thank God that you do. And you've been advocates for yourself. Siouxsie, I love your voice because you're a fighter. You've been a fighter from way back. And I think it's important for everybody to know they can come here and there's people here that will fight for you and advocate with you and link arms with you. Did you want to add anything? Because I know that you have a special connection with PGP, as we all sort of do in our own way, but anything you wanted to add to what we're talking about here? Because I love whatever you share, Siouxsie.
I mean, when I was looking for influencers in the lipedema sphere, when I got active again at the beginning of COVID, that's how I found Kara. And I loved her right away, especially her sass. Like, she gave me courage. And I have to say, this is terrible confession time. And I've been blogging since 2015. And some of the stuff that I've blogged about is is hard to talk about, but I hope that it helps somebody. So I went through a period in junior high where I was a bully, where I was a mean person, but it wasn't me by myself that was a mean person. It was being around people. And I will tell you that the people that I ran with had horrible home lives, like abused at a level that you couldn't even imagine. And the lack of confidence and the difficulty, even just being in school, was so intense. And especially if somebody who looked like they had their shit together and looked like maybe they had a good life, which you have such a beautiful spirit. I could see that, and as terrible as that sounded, it's not an excuse. But I remember one time, it's so terrible. Please forgive me. We all go through whatever we go through, and we have our own growth. But there was a girl that people used to pick on, and she was super quiet and very introverted, and I tripped her in the hallway, and she had a stack of books. And she turned around and she looked at me with so much humanity, and she was like, why would you do that? And it literally, like, that bravado of being, you know, a high school asshole with my friends just crumbled. And the real me went, oh my God, like, what have I become? And I actually helped her with her books, and my eyes got a little teary-eyed, and one of my friends made a comment, and I was like, do you even know her? And she was like, no. And I'm like, okay, you don't know her situation. Nobody knows your situation. Should we tell everybody what you're going through at home? And she was just like, and I'm not saying that at that moment I became a great person, but it's so interesting to hear this. And I think, like, those were very unstable, insecure, snotty little brats that you were dealing with in high school. And I know because I hung out with them. And I also was that to an extent myself, completely. I wasn't like popular and confident. I had this tough bravado, and it was terrible. Anyway, that's why this community, I feel like so many people need to heal on all sides of that. And we've all been, you know, maybe not as kind as we could have been to somebody. And I love that you're so vulnerable, Kara, and that you share this other side. Anyway,
I love that you shared the flip side of it too, Siouxsie, because aren't we all just growing up and evolving? No. I mean, if you were still that person, that would be one thing to go like this about. But the fact is, none of us are who we were even this time last year. No. And in therapy, I actually went back to that scene and replayed it over and talked kindly to myself, healing that person back there who was just insecure. And, you know, people thought I was stuck up because I was insecure and I never smiled. So she's stuck up. So let's pick on her. Okay, we have some medical questions that have come in for Dr. Herbst and Linda Ann Kahn, and we are so glad to have your support here tonight to share your wisdom and your brilliance. Amanda Hadaway asks, Dr. Herbst, I've always had low protein levels on my CMP blood test. I'm wondering, is there a link with that and lipedema, since the fluid in the interstitial tissues is protein rich? Is it leaking out of our blood vessels and thus showing we are low in protein on the blood tests?
Well, I will say I have not seen low protein in the blood of a woman or many women with lipedema. There's probably been one or two. And usually those are the ones with very severe advanced lymphedema. So I don't think, well, it's possible. So we showed that there was leaks around the vessels in the skin of women with lipedema, and it just shows up as, you know, a fluid space. But then a more recent paper that came out of Austria showed that there are leaky blood vessels in lipedema. So why not? I mean, what's leaking out? It's fluid, it's electrolytes, it's probably proteins too. But the fact that I don't see a lot of women with lipedema with low protein in their blood means that there may be something else going on for you like that. And what I could say is that the low protein in the blood would cause more fluid to leak out into the interstitial space and could exacerbate your lipedema.
Okay, and we did have a comment. Our friend Jackie Larson's out there, and she says low protein levels are associated with inflammation, not diet or leaking. And I didn't know, Linda Ann, if you had anything you wanted to add to this particular question.
But all I know is that when they're low protein levels, and it's usually a protein losing enteropathy, which is to do with the kidneys. So I can't comment on for lipedema.
Gotcha. Holly Hope, who, Angelique, you got to meet Holly Hope. You're just having a regular meet and greet with just about everybody, aren't you?
I did. Holly Hope was absolutely amazing to meet, and I'm hoping to meet Amanda Hathaway next, and she's probably the closest to me in distance, and yet I haven't met her yet.
Wow, how cool is that?
Hopefully this upcoming month I'll get to meet her.
Well, Holly says her amino acid analysis always shows essential amino acid deficiencies until last month, and then they diagnosed her with malnutrition. And earlier in chat, Marcia Witt said, we don't talk enough about how little we all eat. Anybody want to comment on that? Which is the conundrum of it all.
I think that gets back to those complex issues early on where you gain weight, you think it's your fault, or even if you don't think it's your fault, you stop eating, you overexercise, so you restrict, and then you might actually binge and eating disorders might ensue. So, but I think if you eat too little for your body starts to say, I'm going to hold on to every single little thing that you put into the body. And it does a really good job of it. And it kind of goes, you know, like the thinking about lipedema is that the fat could be, you know, important to stay on the body and not be lost very easily, so that in times of famine, if you're a lady with lipedema, you're the one who's having kids, you're the one who's still breastfeeding your kids, and, you know, you would be very desirable as a partner, right? And maybe back in the day, that's why women who look like they have lipedema in art books were so revered. You know, it's just unfortunate that we don't revere them. Well, some people do, right?
That's right.
But I wish more did.
Yes. Go ahead, Linda Ann.
So in that picture that you showed of me, when I look at it now, I see, gee, she's quite attractive. But all I saw then were my legs. And I used to not eat sometimes for 3 days and starve and low calories. And it starts with all of us from a very, very early age. And I know that many of my patients are only eating 600 and 800 calories a day. And sometimes I'm trying to get people to eat more, but eat light foods. And I think that it's a very good thing that you guys wrote that, because it's not spoken about enough. And of course, the doctors look and think that the person's at home just eating everything. And then the set point does change, as Dr. Herbst was saying, when you eat too little, your metabolism changes and the set point changes. And then when you start eating more, the body doesn't know what to do with it. So, and it starts at an early age. It's the seesaw.
The seesaw. I see a lot of nodding heads on our panel, and the chat is concurring. More questions, I'll just run through them. Julienne Dukes, does high CRP and ESR? Okay, full disclosure, I should probably know what those letters stand for, but someone save me and answer the question, do they have anything to do with lipedema?
So C-reactive protein is your CRP, and that is a protein that's produced by the liver, and it's actually a marker of repair. So it tells you that damage has ensued and repair is underway, and repair and damage kind of overlap in terms of inflammation. And I often see it elevated in women with lipedema who have something else going on besides lipedema. So they have an obesity component, they have sleep apnea, they have really bad allergies, they have mast cell activation disease. And whenever I see it, I go searching for what is causing the inflammation to be so high. And then erythrocyte sedimentation rate is where they draw your blood and they look to see how quickly the red blood cells fall down in the tube. And if they fall down in the tube really quickly, then your value is higher. And it means that there's a lot of gunk in the blood, like antibodies and other components of inflammation. So it tells you that there's some sort of inflammatory component. I do not see that elevated as often as I do CRP.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that? Or go ahead, Linda Ann.
I want to say that my CRP used to be 6. Then it went down to 2. And I've been really, really strict on an anti-inflammatory diet for many years now. And on my last blood count, I was at 0.8. And then I have a girlfriend who was a teacher for the Dr. Vada School, whose CRP, she has lipedema, used to be 32. She changed her diet, went down to 25. And then she's changed drastically, and she's now down to 5. So that means that the inflammation has quelled. So there is a lot to be said about monitoring what you are eating, not the calories, but what you actually are eating.
You know, you mentioned mast cell earlier in the conversation, and I just want to direct everyone that Linda Ann did an amazing webinar on mast cell. Dr. Herbst was there. We all were fangirling. It is posted on the Lympha Press website, lymphapress.com. It's also on our YouTube channel. A wealth of information, and I want to thank you, Linda Ann, for sharing it with our audience. It has been viewed many times, and it's a very detailed webinar, so you can go rewind and fast forward and take notes. It's great that these are all recorded. And then someone earlier in chat mentioned ACEs, acute childhood experiences, and we mentioned some of our own here. Kathleen Lisson has written a book about ACEs, and we are doing a webinar with her in November. So check out our link tree at Lympha Press. It might be something that you would be interested in, because unfortunately, way too many of us have had either bullying or traumatic childhood experiences that have affected the way we live our lives as adults. And someone said something to me recently: freedom is the win. Not success, not money, not this, not that. Freedom is the win. I want to be free from what has held me back in the past. I think freedom is something that we're all shooting for, and it's something that I grapple with every day. Can anybody else relate, or is that just me?
No, I get it.
Okay, we get it. Lisa Lugo asks for Dr. Herbst, is it important to take quercetin and rutin at the same time, or do we just take one or the other?
Well, Linda Ann may be the better one to answer this, but quercetin is a natural antihistamine. Well, they're both bioflavonoids, and quercetin is a natural antihistamine. It's one of the first things that's recommended to decrease inflammation in people who have mast cell activation disease. And you can get it as an organic powder, so you don't have to deal with the capsules or the tablets and all the other excipient ingredients in there. And then rutin is known to improve lymphatic pumping, and they use that over in Europe a lot. We don't use it as much here, but it does work really well to decrease swelling. So it's decreasing inflammation, and when you decrease inflammation, you improve lymphatic pumping. And can I just say one thing about the lymphatic vessels? You know, we all think that, you know, the lymphatics are all sluggish in lipedema and they don't pump very well. But new data that came out of Eva Sevick and John Rasmussen's lab from Houston has shown that in lipedema, the lymphatics are pumping really, really fast. They're pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping. And why are they doing that? That's my question to you to think about. And there's, you know, different possibilities. We've talked about leakage today, and that's one of them. But what are we exactly doing? You know, so you're not really, your aim is not to improve lymphatic pumping, I don't think, per se. It's to decrease the inflammation that's in the body, and that provides a more healthy environment for things to do what they're supposed to do and for the tissues to be cleaned out. But if you have inflammation, the tissues are more stagnant. Linda Ann, sorry, I defer to you.
One thing about quercetin, some people who do have mast cell activation have to take a lower dose, actually, of everything. So where you might be able to take 500 milligram of quercetin, they might have to start with 100 milligram.
Okay. April Sluter. April, we so appreciate you being out there and for all you do to uplift the community. She says she just started taking berberine. I think I'm saying that properly. And it makes her feel like she wants to pee. We all agree that peeing comes up here regularly, and it's a good thing because you're eliminating stuff. Any suggestions on how much to take, and is it okay to take berberine long term? I've never heard of what I feel like I have a deer in the headlights evening tonight. Did you know what it all is, everybody? Aside from our medical experts. Okay. I've got to get away from this computer and start reading other things. Go ahead.
So berberine is really good because it balances blood sugar, and it also actually helps with cholesterol. So I take berberine every day.
Well, there you go. Susie, you are smiling. Do you take berberine too? No. Is that a no?
No, I don't. I take stuff that has a whole bunch of these little bits and pieces in there. I see a natural therapist who does a specific kind of testing with me. And I literally, my body fluctuates so much that I just go every week and I'm like, what do I need to take? And what don't I take? And she helps me. This last week I was stressed out and it didn't matter what I did.
Yeah.
Just my blood sugar kept going up and stress.
Yeah. You know, Susie and I both lost our pets this past week, and it was just a crushing blow to our hearts. And so bear with us. We're a little sad tonight. We've got some chatter in our chat tonight about the Lympha Press. Megan Frew had her friends all swoop in and they did a GoFundMe and she got her Lympha Press Optimal Plus. And we have been so heartwarmed about her posts and wearing the garments and explaining how they're used and thanking her community and her supporters. Megan, it's just such a blessing to see you so happy. I want everybody to know that not everybody needs a GoFundMe account to get a Lympha Press, and we would be honored to work with you and your insurances. You don't talk yourself out of it until you try. I did an interview with Liz Saunders this week. Liz Saunders, who was bullied in high school. She was a cheerleader. And when she walked in, the basketball team all yelled, "There's Thunder Thighs." It's a good interview. You're going to like it, everybody, because she's just faced it down and she has really done a great job managing her lipedema. She has her Optimal Plus. Shoot me an email, bviola@lymphapress.com. We will get the process started and we will advocate for you, work with your insurance, and help you get what you need to manage your condition. It's just one tool in your toolbox, but I may not know about some of these things that are being talked about here, but I sure know about the Lympha Press, right, Dr. Herbst?
Exactly right.
All right. I got to just own what I do and what I don't know. When it comes to joint replacement surgery with lipolymphedema, what issues should be considered? Katie Taylor would like to know.
Well, I think you want to optimize, everything that you can. You definitely want to decrease swelling, and one of the best ways to do it, we all know, compression garments, manual lymphatic drainage, using your Lympha Press pump, and other deep tissue therapies. You could do whole body vibration, but probably not with the knees. But you just want to optimize the tissue as best you can. And then after, you want to get moving as soon as you can. You want to get permission from your surgeon. How soon can you go back to your therapist? Can you wear compression garments? And if you can't wear it over the knee, can you wear it above and below the knee? Can you wear it on the opposite leg? You just keep doing these things. How soon can you go back to using your pump? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Linda Ann has other things to add.
Well, I think you really covered that beautifully. The only thing I could add is, reduce the inflammation as much as possible, take arnica afterwards, anti-inflammatory herbs, but check with the doctor first, when you can add those. I do like turmeric for inflammation, but you can't take it straight after surgery or before or after. It can cause bleeding. So that's what I would add to that. And then I loved what you said about, how else to take care.
Excellent.
What about bromelain though? Is that okay for after surgery? Because that's what Dr. Stutz had me taking.
Oh, the doctors usually have the patients stop with the enzymes a week or two before surgery and a week or two afterwards, which is always hard because it helps so much, break down the fibrotic tissue. But I defer to the doctor always. Mm-hmm. And I know what I would do, but I defer to the doctors because you have to.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. A few more questions before we do our final roundup of the things we would say to ourselves in high school. And by the way, those of you in our amazing chat tonight, let us know what you would have said to yourself in high school, your high school you. By the way, Jacqueline Larson says bromelain after surgery is okay. We appreciate her expertise. It's fine. It helps with healing. Wonderful. Are there any impacts on BM? Do lipedema and lymphedema affect BMI? And if so, how much? Question from Katie Taylor.
Well, both of them can affect BMI because both of them are associated with increased connective tissue. And anytime you increase tissue on the body in any way, whether it's with muscle or fat or even swelling, your body mass index goes up. And with obesity or lipedema, the greater the body mass index, the greater the risk for developing lymphedema, which will then make your fat grow more and then your BMI goes up more. So body mass index is just a way of measuring how much mass of your body there is. And it's certainly not the best way to measure lipedema. So a better way to measure lipedema, or in conjunction with body mass index, I like to do the waist hip ratio, or you can do the waist height ratio, or you can just get like a DEXA scan and you can see where everything is, which is the gold standard for body composition.
PGP, your face was doing things. I knew you wanted to talk. Go for it.
So I personally hate BMI because I think it's bullshit. But if it wasn't for Dr. Jamie, I wouldn't have had surgery because my BMI was a 66 before surgery. No doctor would touch me, but he knew I needed the help, and my other health issues weren't drastic and like that it was safe to do surgery, and I'm grateful. But I've had 6 surgeries. My BMI has only gone down 6 points. I joke it's a point per surgery, but lipedema has its own math. So you can't really focus on the scale with it or with weight. I do like inches lost, size of clothes different, fitting in a bathtub, an umbrella covering me, like stuff like that is what I measure by. Because I mean, we took 20 pounds of skin off on the tummy tuck alone and the scale went down 1 pound.
Wow.
I don't understand it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Mucinex, real quick, any benefits to take Mucinex for lipedema? Angela Gray has heard one doctor recommend that. And I'm hearing crickets about Mucinex.
Say that again, Brenda.
Mucinex for lipedema. Is there anything to that is, I feel like this has come up before, but refresh our memories.
So Mucinex, is normally used to loosen up the mucus in your bronchioles so that you can cough up the phlegm that's, before you took Mucinex was too gooey and was stuck to the side. And the mucus is made up of glucose, sugar molecules, and so is the fluid that is in lipedema and lymphedema tissue. So the thought is, hey, if Mucinex works for mucus, why wouldn't it work for the mucus in between the cells? And what I found is it works for some women with lipedema and it doesn't work for others. And the problem is, if you look up the mechanism of action for Mucinex, they don't know. They don't know how it works. They have no idea how it works. So how are we going to figure out who it would work for if we don't really know how it works?
Wow, great point. That's excellent. Fatty liver and lipedema, is that common?
It's common when obesity accompanies lipedema. So whenever fat starts to grow above the, I say, groin area, that's when it starts. And it usually is in combination with prediabetes. It's definitely something to watch out for, definitely something to look for.
And a new name I have not seen in the past, and if I've missed you, I apologize. Kathy McGillivray wants to know if anyone has lipedema in their abdomen. Any of our panelists? Lipedema in your abdomen.
Oh, yeah.
And if anybody in chat wants to, yep, yep. Everybody's saying yes. And that is one of the reasons why Lympha Press recommends the pantsuit, because it will go from really right below your chest down to the bottom of your feet, because just pumping your legs, hey, pumping is great, but the more you can cover, the more you can move that fluid, eliminate, and help yourself. We are so running out of time, but I want to know, what would you have told yourself in high school, Dr. Herbst?
I would have told myself to believe in myself and listen to my inner voice more and love myself more.
Drop the mic. Pattie Cornute.
I'm going to flip the script because you know I do. I have been dealing with emotional sides because I went through having COVID, and then I had a knee issue, and then I got the flu, and I wasn't able to do my fitness stuff. So it's like one little thing emotionally took a hit because I wasn't combating it with those feel good vibes I get when I get to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on a spiral of going down. You know, you keep thinking, okay, I'm never going to walk again. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So for me, I would flip it, and I would be like, I'm going to go talk to my high school self and give myself at 53 a kick in the pants, because I need that energy. I need that freedom, like you said, to just believe everything is open to us. Nothing is set in stone. You will get better. You will move again. You will get through this. So yeah, I would flip it.
I wish I had known you in high school, but I'm so glad I know you now. You're that kind of person. All of you, really, you are my friends, and I love being with you every month. Linda Ann, what would you have said to your high school self?
Just have confidence in who you are. Just move forward with strength, and don't worry about your legs.
That's a good one. Siouxsie, we know you weren't in high school, but at that age, at that very vulnerable age, what would you have said to yourself?
One, it's all going to turn out awesome. Just keep going and stop obsessing over your legs. Oh my God, there's so much more to us than those.
So much more, so
That's
much
what I would
more.
do.
I love that. Siouxsie, you know what? You may have set free some people tonight that were bullies back then. Thank you for sharing that with such candor and vulnerability, because we wouldn't trade who you are today for anything.
Thanks, Brenda.
Jenny Beaujean, what would you say to your high school self?
You know what? I think it's important, and I wish I had done this more then, to always remember every day, treasure what's right in front of you right now in the moment. Don't worry about the other crap, but just enjoy and treasure the moment, you know, because it's taken me a long time to get to that point, and it's such a difference.
So good. PGP, you touched all of our hearts tonight with your post and what you shared. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, that those girls weren't really your friend, and that you don't need to let their voices still control things.
You got good friends, girl.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I let my lippy butterfly, Angelique, have the last word. It's always a good one.
I would tell myself that it is okay to be exactly who I was created to be. We said earlier in the show that I created that logo, but I went to graphic design school because I was afraid to be a singer. I felt like because of my size, it wasn't possible for me to make it big in the music industry. And the best that I could possibly do is maybe do something where nobody would have to see me. But I would free myself to be exactly who I am. I was saved back then, and I would be super Christian-y still, and I would not ever stray away from that. I would focus completely on music, and I would be exactly who God created me to be, and I wouldn't have any shame.
And with that, everybody, the chat is confirming tonight was a life-affirming evening with great information. We thank you to our medical professionals, Dr. Herbst, Linda Ann Kahn, all of you wonderful panelists. Freedom is the win. Go get yours. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week.